Good evening, everyone. My name is Thomas Varela. I serve as the Assistant Director of Undergraduate Students, and we're excited to have you here for our sneak peek into the Temple University School of Pharmacy. We're excited to have you join us. Many of you are still trying to make that last minute decision as it relates to what college you're going to attend. We believe that here at Temple, we're ready to bring you here and make you become future owls. But we also recognize that you have a lot of great choices that you're deciding upon. And so we want to use this evening to be a sneak peek of what you will experience if you decide to become a Temple owl. Many of you have already been accepted, so you're one step in that process, and we just want to give you a taste of what it is like to be a Temple University School of Pharmacy student. Once again, we will make sure to get a copy of this presentation to you, and we're going to go into our presentation shortly. So once again, this is our Temple University Pharmacy Showcase. My name is Thomas Varela. We're excited to have Dr. Benjamin Blass, Associate Professor of Pharmaceutical Sciences, joining us. We're also excited to have Dr. Marissa Cavaretta, Clinical Associate Professor in Pharmacy Practice and Director at the Office of Experiential Education. And we'll this evening give you a taste of what it is like to be a student in our School of Pharmacy. For if you are not aware, the Temple University School of Pharmacy was established in 1901. This year, we are celebrating 125 years of producing pharmacists. We are located on the Health Science campus in Philadelphia, about a mile and a quarter from the main campus. And so there is transportation that is available to students from our main campus to the Health Science campus, and we share a campus with our medical school, dental school, and the university hospital. As you know, you all are all students that have been accepted to Temple University. So, of course, congratulations. You have been accepted into our undergraduate program. Our undergraduate program consists of two parts. We have our 0 to 6 early assurance program, and we also have a Bachelor's of Science in Pharmaceutical Sciences. Those are our undergraduate components. We also have professional degrees at our school. We have a Doctor of Pharmacy, along with a Master's in Science in those programs that you see listed below. That includes drug discovery, drug delivery, and pharmacokinetics. As mentioned, you all have been accepted into the pharmaceutical science major. What does that mean? You have the choice to consider between our early assurance program or to pursue a 4-year undergraduate degree. Most of you, if not all, will be advised to follow the early assurance program, and you will work with my office to better understand what does that mean. And ultimately, you will decide to continue in the early assurance, or you may decide to pivot into the 4-year program. As mentioned, students are automatically enrolled in the early assurance program. It's a 6-year program. And as long as you maintain your performance, you will be transitioned over to the PharmD component. And as you can see there, those are the requirements to maintain your performance. As mentioned, you will do an application towards your 2nd year, but it's more of a formality because you have already reserved your seat based on the fact that you've been accepted into Temple University. So the early assurance program is the straightforward way to become a pharmacist. Pharmacists are healthcare professionals who are experts in medication management. Their role is to ensure safe and effective use of prescription drugs. But we also have the Bachelor's in Pharmaceutical Science, which is a newer program. It's a non-clinical pathway program for careers in pharmaceutical sciences. These are careers in the broader pharmaceutical industry, the biotech industry, and it gives you as a student an opportunity to do research, participate in quality control, regulatory affairs, and it also serves as a bridge to get you into professional school, master's degree programs, and also pharmacy school. So if you are a student that is not interested in the early assurance and you want to secure your bachelor's degree first, you still have an opportunity to go to pharmacy school. As mentioned, pharmacists, they serve as the medication experts. They specialize in medication therapy. They work in spaces around disease management, and they work in preventative medicine. And our speakers today will talk a little bit more about the industry more specifically. So I'm kind of breezing through this a bit. But I did want to leave you with this point. The annual salary for a pharmacist, excuse me, is about 137,000, and we're expecting growth in the industry about 5%, which is faster than average. So you are on the pathway towards a promising and rewarding career. And if you choose to join us, we will be well prepared. We will be very excited, well prepared to prepare you for that industry. So at this time, I'm going to stop sharing my presentation and I'm going to bring Dr. Blass to the screen.
Hey guys, I guess that means I should put up my slides. So first off, welcome to all of you who have chosen to be here. I'm very excited to have this opportunity to discuss things with you, and I really appreciate that you each took the time to do this to start with. Um, my role in Temple University is as a professor of medicinal chemistry. I'm not a pharmacist, so just for your own knowledge, I'm more of a drug discovery scientist. In fact, that's what I do. I've been working on developing new medications for about 35 years. Prior to my time at Temple University, I worked in industry, and I also am an expert in intellectual property law, so I write patents for small companies and do things like that. But one of the things that I want to talk to you guys about and maybe give you guys an idea of how this all works is what does it mean to develop a new medication? And at the same time, we get into a conversation about why are they so expensive to start with? Because one conversation kind of leads into the other anyway, so why not cover them both? And so, we think about, drugs, why are they so expensive? Well, first off, it's because they cost a lot to discover and get to market. It costs about $2.7 billion to get a single drug to market for a new indication. So, come up with that new antibiotic or that new treatment for Alzheimer's or a new treatment for toenail fungus. It's going to cost a lot of money. And that's enough money to buy 33 Boeing jets or 11,480 homes at roughly $250,000. So why would I invest all this money? Well, because people can make a lot of money off of it. And when you hit a jackpot, like Pfizer's Lipitor sold over $5 billion in annual sales for almost 20 years. But why is it so expensive? Well, because it's really exceptionally complicated to do. It takes 7 to 12 years to get even one across the finish line on the market, and only about 1 in 10 drugs that make it into the clinic ever even actually get approved because there's a very high failure rate. So why does it take so long to make a drug? Well, let's see. Well, because you have to do a lot of things. First off, you have to make a compound that's active, right? So, let's say you want to cure a bacterial infection. Well, you have to make a compound that is active and able to do that. So, no activity equals no drug, right? Well, it's all well and great that you have a compound that can kill a bacteria, but there's a lot of other things that go on in the human body that you have to be worried about, right? So it's great that you can kill the bacteria, but what if that same compound stops your heart because it impedes some of the electrical signals that are there? The good news is your bacterial infection is gone. The bad news is you're dead, right? So that's generally something we want to avoid. And there are literally thousands of different targets that we have to screen against, and any one of them can lead to the end of a project. So, you know, that creates a lot of science that has to happen. So if I've got up here an example, if I want to target a serotonin receptor that's involved in the disease, so serotonin being a neurochemical that we use, we create in our brains and other places, there are 14 different receptors, one of which might be useful a disease target, but the others might cause things like hallucinations. And so in order to identify a single compound that's active at one, but not the others, that takes a lot of work and time, right? Okay, so let's assume we can generate a compound that is as an activity and it's selective. It doesn't do anything bad. Well, it's got to be soluble in water because at the end of the day, people are fleshy bags of water. If you can't get the drug in the water, then it can't get to the systems, the organs, and whatever that we need to have for it to function, right? So we got to be active, we got to be selective, we got to be soluble in water. Those are a lot of things to accomplish in one molecule. And there's testing that goes on trying to identify one compound that will do all these things. All right, so let's assume that we have an active compound, it's selective for the target, doesn't hit anything, so there's no toxicity to worry about. It's soluble in water, that's great. It has to be able to be absorbed through the GI tract. So when you eat that medication, assuming it's an oral medication, if it goes in your stomach and then goes in your small intestines and large intestine and just passes out and that's it, and no absorbance happens, well, then there's no drug because it can't, again, it can't get to the place it needs to be in order to do what it needs to do. So, all of our cells have cell barriers in front of them, and just like the GI tract, the cells that line the GI tract present a barrier to those drugs. So, if we have an active compound that's selective to targets, that's water soluble, and able to get into through the GI tract into the blood and get zipped around, we have a drug. No, we don't actually, because this drug compound has to be able to avoid metabolism, right? And be able to stay in the body long enough to actually have an effect that we want it to have. So, how long is long enough? Well, if I'm treating a headache, I might want to have that drug around for 6 hours and then be gone, right? If I'm treating, I don't know, a sleep disorder, I don't want to have a drug that hangs around for 15 hours because then the good news is you got a good night's sleep. The bad news is you didn't wake up for classes that day. That's kind of bad. Maybe not even the next day because of how long it stays around. If it's an anesthetic, well, you want it to wear off as soon as the patient stops taking it, right? Complicating all this is the body is designed with metabolism components that are designed to protect the body from bad things and to metabolize the things we eat and manufacture things. But those processes also destroy drugs and get rid of them. So we have to have a compound that is active in the target, selective over all the other biological systems, soluble in water, able to be absorbed by the GI tract, and avoid metabolism long enough to do something we want it to do. And then maybe we might have a drug. But you still have to be able to find a compound, a drug that is able to reach the intended target site. So if I'm, say, treating a lung infection, if the drug doesn't get to the lungs to get to where the bacteria is infecting my lungs, it's not a very good treatment for lung infection. If I'm trying to treat kidney disease and my compound doesn't get to the kidney, I probably have a problem and it's not going to be a drug. So you have to do all sorts of studies in animals first, right, to figure out where does the compound go once you give it to the animal or the person, assuming that it actually is around long enough and soluble enough and active enough and selective enough to even be a candidate to get into the animal models to start with. Okay, so that's a lot of stuff, but we're still not done, right? You have to be able to manufacture it. So somebody like me has to work on all these things. Plus, we got to be able to figure out how to manufacture it in a massive scale. So if we have one person that's taking a drug, maybe twice a day, because lots of drugs are given twice a day, at 200 milligrams per day, right? If you're going to take that every day, say for a chronic condition like, I don't know, osteoporosis, bone loss, then that single patient is going to take 146 grams of it per year. Well, a drug that is, going to have a sizable market share might treat 500,000 patients every year. And so that means in order to be able to get this to market and use it, assuming no failures in any of the manufacturing batches, you have to be able to make 73,000 kilos of this material per year. For reference, that's about 35,000 cars in weight. That's a lot of material, right? And the very first tablet has to be identical to the very last tablet, right? So all these things that we're still not there yet because even if we could manufacture it on that scale, we have to formulate it in a way that a patient will accept it, right? So if the patients don't want to take the drug, then it's not going to be very useful. Children in particular are difficult because they don't like the way things taste. And trying to get a child to take a medication, say a 4 or 5 year old, it doesn't taste good. Well, that's a real challenge. And there was also a time when inhaled insulin was brought forward as a possible treat for diabetes. The only problem was the patients didn't want it. The company who tried that lost several $billion trying to get that because they could all do all these things above, but they couldn't get the patients to use it because they just didn't like it. Whoops. I think somebody just tried to get admitted. I think somebody will need to take care of that. So let's assume we get all those things done. We're still not done yet. You have to convince the doctors, the patients, the insurance companies, I left out the regulators, that the drug that you've got coming on board is better than all the existing therapies, right? It's not just is it better than the existing therapies, you got to convince them that it is by presenting data and getting the regulators to agree, getting the insurance companies to agree that it's worth the money, right? If I come up with a new antibiotic that costs $1,000 per tablet and does the same as ampicillin, which is available now and is probably 20 cents a dose, why would the insurance companies agree to pay for that? They won't. So you got to be commercially successful, right? And then lastly, and very importantly, you have to be able to be patentable. This is not an absolute requirement, but it sure as heck helps because that patent allows you to protect your product for a set period of time, generally about 7 to 10 years after all this stuff has been done to get you to market, which then allows you to make money and recoup the again $2.7 billion it takes to make a drug. So that is in a nutshell how one goes about thinking about making a drug and why they cost so much. And that is my show. All
Great.
right.
Thank you
So
very much. Wanted to thank you, Dr. Blass,
sure.
for that. As you can see, students, in your first semi lecture, you're seeing that in pharmacy school, you're looking at science knowledge, you're working on math knowledge. You also, in many cases, have to understand global economy and how, when you're thinking about drug production, how does it matter in the business world? So, as pharmacists, you have to be knowledgeable of so many different industries and sectors and knowledge bases beyond just science, right? And so at Temple, we are very confident and passionate about ensuring that our students are prepared for the industry in which they're going to choose. So as you begin to really think about where you want to go, you want to make sure that you're thinking about a university that's had a century plus of experience in developing the next generation of pharmacists. And so at this time, I'm going to ask Dr. Cavaretta to come up to the screen that's going to go into the second part of the pharmacy showcase.
Thank you. Okay. Let me slideshow here. All right. Well, first, I want to say congratulations to all of you. How exciting. You've been accepted to Temple. So I hope in a couple of years I see you in the PharmD program or in the bachelor's program if that's the direction you're planning on going in. So I'm Marissa Cavaretta. I'm a pharmacist by trade. I've been on faculty at Temple for 13 years now. And I'm going to talk about the process of getting that medication that Dr. Blass talked about getting to market to our patients. Because at the end of the day, that medication does not work unless our patients take them. So first, I want to start with why is it exciting to be a pharmacist or go into a pharmacy career? Well, every day when I'm seeing my patients and I'm on my service, and my service is in the hospital at Temple University Hospital across the street. I'm in internal medicine. So I treat a variety of disease states. And when I'm on my service and I'm interacting with patients and I'm interacting with the care team, I'm solving problems. And when I'm thinking about those problems that patients have, I think, can somebody self-treat? Are there non-pharmacologic options? When do we need to step up therapy? When does it have to be a prescription? When should they be referred? And then, of course, at the end of the day, because I'm a pharmacist, I'm always thinking about medication safety and how effective it is. The other thing that's really nice about being a pharmacist is that we are the most accessible healthcare providers. Any drugstore that you walk into, there's a pharmacist there, and they're accessible. They're easy to talk to. They're very knowledgeable. So patients every single day go to pharmacists first with questions, often before they see anybody else. And then lastly, one of the other important points that I just want to mention is that pharmacists know medication use more than other healthcare professionals. We get the most education in it. So the doctors are prescribing that medication, but we actually have more knowledge of it. And we're trained to be able to take that science and individualize the care for the patient. So we are actually called upon often by providers like physicians and nurse practitioners and PAs for pharmacy questions. So it's really exciting to be in that position. So what are we going to do today? So I thought one of the first things to expose you to is the OTC aisle of a pharmacy. Because when you come to Temple in your first year, you're going to get an intern license. And that intern license is going to give you a lot of autonomy, in a sense, to be able to work under a licensed pharmacist, and you can start making recommendations. And one of the first therapeutic areas that you're going to learn about are over-the-counter medications. All right, so let's take a sneak peek and let's take a walk to the OTC aisle. We've all been in that aisle before in a drugstore. There are so many different medications, often for the same thing. So where do you start? Well, we're going to meet a patient in that aisle today. And this is our patient. So this is a 22-year-old. She's a female. She stopped by the pharmacy complaining of pain in her chest. So the pharmacist or the pharmacy intern questions this individual, and she goes on to say that it's a burning sensation and it occurs about once a week. It's been going on for a month after she eats spicy foods. It's worse at night when she's lying down. She's tried Tums with minimal relief, and she has no pertinent past medical history and doesn't take any chronic medications. So that means that she doesn't have any other chronic disease states. She doesn't take any medications regularly. So that's what that means. So now, as a pharmacist, what we're starting to think of is a process in the back of our minds. And that process takes us through these different steps. So this is called the pharmacist patient care process. And it's a framework. It's a way that we're trained to think, to say, okay, we have to collect certain information to then be able to assess that information and then make a plan for the patient that's individualized. When we make a plan, we have to implement that plan. And it has to be an implementation that works for the patient. Then we have to follow up with that plan and come up with monitoring. So then how do we do that? What does that look like here? Well, collecting information looks exactly like this. We're going to take the prominent symptoms that the patient is experiencing, the severity of those symptoms. We're going to ask or collect, the onset, the duration of those symptoms. So when did it start? How long has it been going on? Has the patient tried any medications or any other non-pharmacologic measures to help treat these symptoms? So once we collect all that information, we're going to assess that information. So what does assessing look like? Well, in this case, because we're in the OTC aisle, we have to say, can the patient self-care and self-treat at home, or do we have to refer the patient? And that's what we're going to decide. Then after we assess, we're going to come up with a plan. So what is that plan? If it's self-care, are there non-pharmacologic? So that means non-medication options. Or can we go with an OTC product? And then defining what our treatment goals are. So how do we know it's working? When we implement the plan, we have to make sure that the patient can do it, it's feasible, that they're educated on it, that they know what they're doing, that they know what they're looking out for. And then the follow-up. So what are those parameters to monitor? And then when do we need to reevaluate? Or when do we need to know we have to step up treatment? Or when do we need to know that treatment can stop? All right. So now that we went through that wheel and that process, let's practice with that patient that came in. So as a reminder, she's that 22-year-old college female. She has pain in her chest. It's burning. It occurs about once a week after she eats spicy foods. It's worse at night. She tried Tums. Well, if we're collecting information, what are those prominent symptoms and the onset and the measures tried? Well, we know when we pull it out here, what does she tell us? We heard that she has pain and burning. Well, it started a month ago. It comes on about once a week. And then she tried Tums with very minimal relief. So what the pharmacist or pharmacy intern is hearing here is that the symptoms sound like something called GERD, or gastrointestinal reflux disease. And the signs and symptoms of this, well, this heartburn that radiates, chest pain. You can get this after meals, especially. Patients may have belching or nausea with it. And intermittent symptoms occur infrequently, typically less than twice a week. Frequent symptoms occur 2 or more times a week. As we're assessing this, we're thinking about, well, when do we refer to a physician? When is the patient eligible for an over-the-counter product? Well, we would refer to a physician if the patient's been unresponsive to OTC medications or over-the-counter medications. Well, the patient has taken some, but I wouldn't say she's necessarily unresponsive. She's had some relief, but she hasn't had any blood in her vomit. She hasn't had difficulty swallowing. She hasn't had unintentional weight loss. She hasn't had heartburn that's frequent for more than 3 months. So far, it sounds like the patient could be eligible for an over-the-counter product. So now that we just discussed that, is self-care appropriate for this patient? Yes, I would absolutely say so, because the patient has intermittent heartburn, and there's no exclusions at this point that we see to self-care. So now as we start to think about what is the plan, we have non-pharmacologic options for the plan. So avoiding trigger foods, avoiding alcohol, elevating the bed, avoid laying down, avoid tight clothing. If she smokes, you would want to avoid smoking. So these are non-pharmacologic, non-medication ways that we can treat or improve her symptoms. But we're in that OTC aisle, remember? So we have all these medications to choose from. So she told us she was taking Tums, and Tums is an acid. So what you see here in the lowercase letters, these are the generic names of the medications, and then what you see in the uppercase is these are the brand names of the medications. So she took an antacid, and antacids are not a bad place to start, but their place in therapy is really just to provide this short-term relief, and it doesn't prevent symptoms. So it's not really working for her. So a step up in therapy would be an H2 receptor blocker or an histamine 2 receptor blocker. And here's examples here that we would find in the OTC aisle. Famotidine or Pepcid is the brand, cimetidine or Tagamet as the brand. And here, this provides more prolonged relief of symptoms. It's good for that intermittent heartburn, and it also treats and prevents it as well. So again, this is a step up in therapy. Now, one more step up in therapy would be a proton pump inhibitor. And we have esomeprazole, which is Nexium, omeprazole, which is Prilosec, lansoprazole, which is Prevacid. And a place in therapy here is that for your more frequent heartburn. So heartburn that occurs 2 or more times a week or is non-responsive to the H2 receptor blockers, okay? So now as we're thinking about our different classes of medications in that aisle that we could choose from, we just narrowed it down and we're thinking about, well, the type of symptoms she has. We already said she has intermittent symptoms. So as we're putting the plan together, we're going to think about those intermittent symptoms. We're going to think about her triggers, and then we're going to put a plan together that includes non-pharmacologic treatment and then medication treatment on top of it, and then define our goals. So what does that look like? Well, first, let's avoid those triggers. So if she can avoid those foods, if she knows what those foods are that triggers it, so for her, she says spicy foods, let's avoid that. Also, let's tell her, avoid lying down right after eating. That's going to make the symptoms worse. When she goes to sleep at night, elevate the head of the bed. That can improve some of her symptoms because she said it is worse at night. And because she tried Tums and we know that we could step up therapy and we know we have medications out there that can help prevent symptoms before they even start, well, let's recommend one of those. And the step up in therapy here, the next step up would be the H2 receptor blocker. And the goal would be to resolve those symptoms, to minimize those symptoms, so she's not complaining of those anymore. So that brings us to those medications that fall into this drug class that we could just pick up off the shelf and she could buy. So one of those would be famotidine, or Pepcid is one of the brands. Zantac 360 is another one of those brands. It has the same generic medication in it. And the dose could be 10 to 20 milligrams once a day or twice a day. The other medication is cimetidine or Tagamet, and the dose there is 200 milligrams by mouth once or twice a day. Now, a pharmacist knows and a pharmacy intern knows everything about these medications. So in their mind, they're thinking, when should I tell the patient to take it? Well, I should tell the patient to take it 30 to 60 minutes before they eat. They understand the duration of activity. So it's going to last about 8 to 12 hours. They would tell the patient about some common side effects. So even though these are very well tolerated for the most part, there are some common side effects. All medications have some common side effects. But what pharmacists and pharmacy interns are really thinking about is those patients where this could be unsafe in. And does this patient who came to the OTC aisle, is this a patient in which this medication would be unsafe in? And that wouldn't be the case here. We're thinking about patients who have poor kidneys or reduced kidney function. Well, those patients would have to take a reduced dose of these medications. That's not our patient who stopped us in the OTC aisle. How about older patients or elderly patients? Well, caution in those patients. So maybe we wouldn't want to use these in them because it has been linked to increasing the risk for confusion. And then we want to think about, well, what's a good trial? Like, how do we know it's working? Well, we tell a patient, give it a couple of weeks. In a couple of weeks, if it doesn't work, now we either have to step up therapy or refer the patient to a medical provider. So here's our implementation of the plan. So we said already, we're going to step up therapy to that H2 receptor blocker. So what are we going to recommend? So we picked one of those medications from the OTC aisle that's in that class. So we said, here's famotidine, that's Pepcid, 10 milligrams. We're telling our patient, you should take this 30 to 60 minutes before those trigger foods. If, of course, the symptoms go beyond just eating these trigger foods and she starts to experience them more often, then she starts taking the medication daily. And then we want to incorporate those non-pharmacologic measures that we talked about already too. Avoiding the triggers, not lying down right away, elevating the head of the bed, and so on. And then, of course, the last part of all of this is follow-up and monitoring. So we want to make sure that the patient has that monitoring plan at home because you don't want them just to go home and not really know what to expect. So you want to tell the patient that this medication should reduce that heartburn or those symptoms that she's experiencing. However, give her an action plan. So if she's still experiencing symptoms without improvement for more than 2 weeks, then at that point, she can come back to the pharmacy and a discussion could be had about stepping up therapy, or that could be also an opportunity to refer to her primary care provider for a more thorough workup. So all of that just now to give you just a glimpse of how a pharmacist or a pharmacy intern thinks, that we think through a process, that we understand the medications well, that we actually try to individualize the care for the patients, that whatever we recommend for the patient is something feasible for them, something that they can take, something that we believe will work for them. And going back to what I said right in the beginning about how rewarding and how exciting pharmacy is as a career plan, you really do get to apply your knowledge and help people and make a real difference. So of course, before I finish today, I do want to say that as a student at TUSP, you will turn your pharmacy knowledge into impact. So I really hope that if this was exciting to you, you think of pharmacy as a career path because you're going to learn about this in your first year of pharmacy school. And with your intern license, you're going to be putting that plan into action when you're in the community setting or in your jobs. So that's all I have. Congratulations again. And I really hope that we see you in a couple of years.
Great. Thank you very much, Dr. Cavaretta.
Thank you.
Get my slide up so we can. All right. So you may be ready now to go to the next CVS or Walgreens. And as you're looking at those medications in the aisle, you may feel a little bit ready to better talk to your parents or your grandparents about which medication to take. That's part of the role that you will be pursuing as a pharmacist and you'll be doing as a pharmacist. And so we hope that you learned a little bit more about the industry that you seek to join. And why did we choose to do this evening? Well, one, because we wanted you as a student to really understand the industry that you're choosing, the dynamic industry that you're going into. And then two, we want you to understand the type of learning that you will gain as a student at Temple University. And so as you think about your impact beyond the classroom, you see our students, they go to the Capitol to advocate for pharmacists in the industry. They speak with politicians, they work in the community, they do research and earn awards. And they also do events in the community, as I mentioned, serving the neighborhood here in Philadelphia, making sure that the kids and the families are understanding the medications that they're taking and understanding the health care that they're receiving. We also have enriching activities, activities beyond the classroom, where our students get to socialize, hang out, learn more about corporations and the work that they do. Also, real life hands on experience, and also interact with other healthcare professionals and future healthcare professionals. Because as I mentioned, we are located on a health science campus. So we have opportunities for our students to interact with future doctors, future dentists, and those individuals get to learn from you as a future pharmacist. And so why Temple? As mentioned, it is a direct pathway into the PharmD program. This gives you an opportunity through our early assurance to complete your degree in 6 years instead of 7 or 8 that may be available at other programs. In addition, our Bachelor's of Science is an industry-focused academic major. As you are deciding between the schools that you're considering, you may be thinking about, do I go and major in biology at one school, or do I go major at chemistry at another school? Well, you will learn and you are seeing that our bachelor's in pharmaceutical science is focused on the pharmaceutical industry. Because, yes, you could go to pharmacy school as a biology major or chemistry major, but you always have to remember that you're being prepared for the major serves as the backup, or it's the background in which you are learning the science. So as a biology major, you're being trained as a biologist. As a chemistry major, you're being trained as a chemist. And yes, you can take those background and go into various industries, but our pharmaceutical science major is preparing you for the industry of pharmaceuticals. And you will see that in the coursework and the interactions that you have in terms of research and career exploration, along with our mentorship, faculty mentorship and academic support. And I would be remiss if I don't mention that we are located in Philadelphia, which is a healthcare and pharmaceutical hub in the Northeast, and some would say in the country. When you think about the proximity to pharmaceutical industries right over a short drive in New Jersey, along with the industries that exist in Pennsylvania and in Philadelphia proper, we will be in a city that is developing and preparing students to enter the pharmaceutical and the biotech hub. So, depending upon the schools that you're considering, you do want to think about the access that you have for internships, talks, conventions, and conferences. And being located in Philadelphia, you will have direct access to those opportunities. And once again, as we talked about in some of the photos that you saw, the leadership and service and community engagement opportunities that you will have on campus, whether it's our main campus or our health science campus. And finally, our small program and dedicated staff like myself and others that will help you navigate this program. So whether you're thinking about our early assurance or going into the Bachelor's of Science and going into the pharmaceutical industry more broadly, our department will be very well prepared to help you navigate that and help you make the best decision for yourself and your family. And finally, the research opportunities that exist with our faculty and the internships that will be available to you once you get to the pharmacy program, and then also internship opportunities if you remain in the Bachelor's of Science. These are all opportunities for you to really understand the pharmaceutical industry, understand the landscape, and really make sure that you're prepared for all that is available to you within the pharmaceutical industry. So with that, we're at the close of our presentation. We're going to open up if any students have questions on what you learned from Dr. Blass or Dr. Cavaretta, feel free to raise your hand or come on the screen. If you have questions related to Temple a little more broadly, we will definitely entertain those as well. But we want to make sure that we give some time back for our faculty to answer questions from you. But if not, then they will be free to leave. So I wanted to see if there's any questions in the audience.
So I missed one of the presentations from Benjamin Blass. So
Okay.
is there any thing that you can present to me again that from what he presented?
Yeah, so we will make sure that anyone that received the registration link, you will receive this presentation. So then you will be able to see the content that Dr. Blass shared.
Thank you.
I should also say I'm happy to answer questions, and my email is on Temple University's website. So just, write down my name and look me up and drop me an email, and I'm going to happily talk to you about what we do.
Yeah,
Yep.
we will make sure the contact information to the speakers are provided to you in a follow-up email.
Thank you.
And I know many of you are looking at the content. You may be thinking, I'm just in high school. I don't know if I'm ready for that. So it's okay if you're not sure what type of question you may have. No question is a bad question. But we really just wanted to make sure, as a student at Temple, for the fact that you have been accepted, that we wanted to give you a taste of what you will be experiencing once you arrive at Temple, and more importantly, once you get to pharmacy school. We really wanted to make sure that you saw a little bit of an inside peek. Not sure what other schools you're applying to or what schools you've been accepted to. But we at Temple really want to make sure that we provide hands-on experience. We're not afraid to really ensure that our students get the content that they need and not look at them as they're not ready for this knowledge. Because we know when you go into CVS, you go into Walgreens, you are experiencing this world. You are seeing it. You may be looking at the content. You may be thinking, oh, I can't wait to get to pharmacy school so that I can really dive deep into all this medication and really make sure that I understand how to serve the patients. And so, we really know that you are already doing a little bit of this, and we wanted to just give you an inside peek. Great, great. So if not, well, you're free, Dr. Blass, Dr. Cavaretta. Once again, we really appreciate you joining us this evening, sharing your expertise and insight. And we hope, once again, we hope that you will continue to serve our students and make yourself available if they have any questions. Once again, we will make sure to get their email to you and their PowerPoint presentation to you.
Thanks, Thomas. And once again, thanks to everyone, all the students who came. It's a pleasure to interact with all of you, and I look forward to seeing you all on campus.
Yep. Look
And I
forward to
share
seeing you.
Dr. Blass's sentiment. So thank you all. It was really nice to see you on here. So best wishes as you transition, and we hope to see you at Temple.
Yes, you.
Great. And with that, we'll be closing out the presentation this evening. Once again, I know you have a difficult decision to make. I know the decision, what it takes. I'm actually a Temple graduate, so I understand how valuable a Temple degree is. And so there will be additional opportunities for you to learn more about our program. On April 23rd, we're going to actually do an admitted student panel where we're going to have students that are currently Temple students who have been accepted into the pharmacy program, giving you the student perspective. And so it will be another virtual conversation where you will actually hear direct insight from our students as to how did they navigate Temple University, what is it like in pharmacy school, and it will be a great way, once again, not only have you heard from our faculty, you will now have a chance to hear from our students to really give you a well-rounded experience of what it is here at Temple University. So once again, that information will be emailed to you, but I would encourage you to write that down, April 23rd at 5 p.m., and it will be a virtual conversation. So with that, we ask you to enjoy the rest of your evening. If you haven't attended Experience Temple Day, we look forward to meeting you on April 11th or April 25th on main campus, which this will give you an opportunity to not only meet myself and Dr. Rose and our staff, but also learn more about Temple University more broadly, interact with financial aid, take a tour of a residence hall, and learn about all the resources available at Temple. And so once again, as we head towards May 1st, there's more opportunity available to you to continue to learn about Temple University, our School of Pharmacy. And we encourage you to take advantage of that because we know this decision that you have to make is a critical one. It's one that is well deserved for all the hard work that you've done in high school and elementary school. And we want to make sure first that we celebrate that, but then two, know that we understand that difficult decision, and we at Temple are prepared to help you make the best decision for you and your family. And so, with that, enjoy your evening, and we look forward to interacting with you again.